Hello everybody. I wanted to share the next project with everybody. It's just a small thing, but it has some kind of important implications, especially in this day and time. What I've been doing is I've been collecting some very old tools here, and these are non-electric, of course. And the idea is that if the time comes when, in my personal situation, if electric power is not available, you don't have to have it for these tools. And I'm not one of those off-the-grid kooks. I just think this makes good common sense to have a plan. And these large hand-operated drills are called egg beater drills. The bigger ones have a breastplate so that you can hold it against your chest when you're pushing against whatever it is you're drilling. And as you can see, this one here, this one here doesn't have the handle that this one does. And we're going to make one. And because that comes in real handy in putting a little extra pressure on whatever it is you're drilling. So if you have a wood lathe, that's great. You could even carve one of these out, but we're gonna make one. I'll show you along the way. It'll probably be a couple of weekend deals, but I mean, it is a small project, but there's just a lot of things we got to have in place to do it. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make one of these by hand, and let me get the camera situated a little better. And of course, these just screw on. You see these on regular electric drills too, but somewhere along the way this was lost on the other drill, and it is very handy to have, so we're going to make one. And this is the type of thing that you could take out in the country if you're building a cabin for a getaway or something. These top tools are a lot of work, but you got an endless supply of energy. If you just go slow and get determined, you're not going to be in a hurry. These can be something that can be invaluable. So we're going to make one at home, and they're not hard to do, and this will be our next project. Well, now, not everybody has to do this the hard way like I'm doing it, but I don't know, I need the exercise, so I thought I'd give this a try. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take a piece of, these are some stumps that somebody had dropped off at the local, there's an area where you can take tree limbs and whatnot and just dump them off. And I picked these up, and I'm not sure the variety of conifer that this is. It's a pine tree, but as you can see, I'm splitting it with wedges. I'm going to get my wood from that. This is a little bit more recycling. Plus, I like that type of wood. Makes good handles. It's pretty easy to work with. So, just a matter of splitting this up. I'm using wedges, which always, on a small scale makes it easier. Anyway, we'll keep going with this. This will get the old ticker going, so make sure you're up to it, because it will get your heart going pretty good. Yeah, you get the idea, and you just keep going at it till it splits apart, and you make smaller pieces of wood. Now what I'm doing, I'll show you, is just following this crack that we got going here. Just going to follow it around on the back side. And our log will split, follow that split all the way around. So here's my new blacksmith hammer, French style, which the blacksmithing thing's a whole nother line of videos that we'll get to later. I want to do some. As you see, that followed that crack straight up. So it'll be a matter of just moving the wedges around from the front side to the back side, and it'll split on apart. And then we'll do it all over again. Now this is some more, there ain't no denying that. It sure smells good. And what I have left over, I'll save for a campfire or for the fireplace. Now from that, I'll cut it quarter one more time, and then we'll start looking for our piece of wood that we're actually going to put on the lathe. And we just turn it over, and we'll go at it again. There you go. The problem with this kind of wood, when you have limbs like that have grown, is it is a lot of work pulling those limbs apart. If you can get a good clean stump in between sections of limbs, that's much easier. And we're doing it the old-fashioned way. Well, after thinking about it for a while and looking at this, I think this portion right here, this limb that grew out, that's still on there, I think will be just about right for the handle we need to make. My original plan was, of course, to plane down some of this rough wood to get a size big enough, but I think that one might just work. And I'm going to make more than just one, but I think that we'll try that. And if it doesn't work, then we can go back to our original plan. Okay, we cut it off, and I really think this is going to make a really good handle. What I'll do is square up the ends and get it ready for the lathe, and then we'll start cutting it down. Annie, kitty kitty. Well, we got our piece of wood chucked up here in the lathe, and our tool rest, and of course you got to make sure you're going to clear all the high spots. Start there, and you can carve this by hand. It's really not that hard if you're that kind of hobbyist, and you can do this, achieve the same thing. So anyway, we're going to just start cutting it down, see how it goes. There's no guarantee that these pieces will work. I mean, the wood could splinter or something, but we're going to give it a try. Depending on your level of skill at wood turning, different guys use different tools, gouges, skewers, whatnot. I'm not that good with a skew yet, so I'll be doing this with a gouge, which does a pretty good job. We'll see how it goes. come back. Okay, what we're essentially doing is, this is the handle off the drill that we did have. We're just going to make one of these out of this. And how we're going to keep those measurements, duplicate the measurements, is of course with a caliper. This is an outside caliper. You can get them anywhere, but essentially, you know, as you go along and you're cutting this piece of wood down, you take a measurement from your old one, and you know, and just replicate it there. And as it gets smaller, you know, just follow the contour pattern. And then when we get down here, well, I'll show you how we're going to do that later. But we're essentially going to make another one of these. I'm sure this is a hardwood, and this is softwood, of course. But I wanted to try it on this first, and if it works out, then we'll make one out of one of those, which is oak. And it's always good to have a backup anyway, in case you know, you break it off. Those type drills, I'm not a fanatic on being off the grid. Now, having said that, I think it's extremely wise to have some sort of a backup plan for if you have to go off the grid for any number of reasons. And you can do without electricity. These are things you need to think about before they happen. You know, it seems like the word prepper is a big, the latest vogue term for people who do that, which is nonsense, but still, it's simply wise and prudent to do those things. I think the good Lord gives us the good sense to use whatever we have at our disposal. Like, I'm using electric power for this, of course, and there are foot-powered lathes and whatnot. But the thing is usually, you know, the good Lord gives you the good sense to use whatever you have at hand, a combination. But be that as it may, for me, I actually feel a desire to see to it that when I don't have to use electric power, that I don't. And plus the fact that it saves you money. But anyway, we'll keep going with this. It'll take a while to cut it down, but you'll see how we do this. If it took any brains to do this sort of thing, the guys who are doing it professionally wouldn't have a job. People, I will add a safety tip here. Something I heard a long time ago. As far as wood turning goes like this, a lot of people have the bad habit of putting their hand on that to see if it's smooth. And your tool rest, and I have a much bigger one, the edges of these tool rests are very sharp. And it would take just the blink of an eye for that to pull you in and amputate a finger. And I heard a wood turner one time at a trade show. He said, if you're going to do that, use the back of your tool, like so. You feel any bumps or any uneven spots just doing that. But I see even lots of guys on YouTube put their hand on there to feel how smooth that is. And even if this tool rest is not there, that's still a very dangerous thing to do, because that can break fingers, amputate fingers, pull clothing in, even pull hair in. So a safety tip there. Something else is this: as we turn this down, you see this gap is getting wider. Oh, my battery ran aground. Can you believe that? Had to stop and get another one. Okay, it'll just take a little while to shave this down. As I was saying, I'm going to have to move this tool rest closer, because you don't want, well, I don't like more than 1/4 of an inch. I don't know what other people say, but that's my rule of thumb. gives you better tool control, and plus there's less chance of something getting pulled down in there. So anyway, we'll continue. Just keep going and keep going and keep going, making it smaller and smaller. Use the tool rest in when it gets a gap. Okay, at this point I've got it down to about 1.5 inches, and I'm going to stop and roughly center this because we're going to have some stock on the outsides. That's going to be our safety margin for making this. And we're just going to make a mark on both sides. And I'll show you why later. There's actually a good reason for that, but we'll stop here and we'll just make the marks like that and like that. And as we go, this is where we'll actually start cutting deep to replicate this shape. I'm gonna part it, meaning just simply to cut some grooves where I made the marks, and we'll begin to cut down to that size. But we gotta use this parting tool to cut those grooves down. Now I did increase the speed, which most of your roughing you do at a slower speed, but this helps speed things up a little bit, and it just depends on the person and their level of expertise. I wanted to stop and show what I think is an easier way to do this. There's a lot of guys that are real good at this, and I'm just mediocre. So I'm going to do it the easiest way I can. What I've essentially done is held my piece up here that we're going to replicate. And you can see I've made a mark here where this ferrule is going to go. That's going to be a shoulder. And then a mark here which indicates one edge of this low spot. And here's another mark of the other side of this low spot. What I'm going to do is make a big one of these. And then I'm going to slowly start turning it down to this size. And see if that doesn't go, make the job a little easier. Well, as you can see, we're getting it down. Close to that shape. What we have is just a larger one of these, and that makes it a little easier to chase on down. Okay, I'm going to wrap up part one here, but you can see what's going on. I essentially have made a bigger one of these, and I'm just going to gradually chase it down, and toward the end I may even, instead of cutting, I may actually just sand it down to this size. And I really think this is going to make a beautiful handle. You can see some heartwood there off that limb. And anyway, I'm going to wrap up part one because I've ordered some threaded inserts, and going to have to find a ferrule that matches that. So you can have a lot of fun doing this type of stuff. I mean, restoring antique tools or antique anything. And with just a little bit of know-how, it's really not that hard. So anyway, we'll stop here with part 1 and pick up next week with part 2.